Good morning, everyone. Let me ask you something. Do you want to look back in 26 and feel proud or regretful? The world is moving fast. Technology is changing. People are changing. Business is changing. If you stay still, you're not safe. You're falling behind. So today I will tell you 5 things you must do before 2026 if you want to survive, thrive, and lead. 1. Learn something you're afraid of. Yes, afraid. Not uncomfortable. Afraid? Whether it's coding, public speaking, learning a new language, or even sailing, pick one thing that scares you and master it. See, here is the signal. Where the fear is, that's where the growth hides. The people who grow are not the people who are the smartest. They're the people who dare to build your digital identity in 2025. Your resume is not a piece of paper. It's your content, it's your reputation online, your knowledge. Your network, your digital footprint. Don't just scroll social media, build on it. Share ideas, start a newsletter, launch a YouTube channel, write on LinkedIn. If people can't Google your value, they will never know it. 3. Get good at working with AI, not fighting it. AI is not your enemy. But if you don't understand it, it will replace you. I'm not saying become a machine. I'm saying become the master of the machine. Learn to use AI tools to write, analyze, design, brainstorm, code, leverage. If AI is a hammer, be the architect, not the nail. 4. Make friends who don't look like you. Your success will depend on how well you collaborate. Not with people who agree with you, but people who challenge you. Work with people from different countries, different industries, different beliefs. The future belongs to global minds. It's not about being the best in your town. It's about being valuable to the world. 5. Start something small. Today, business idea. Start it. Book idea. Write the first page. Want to move abroad? Start researching. Want to change careers? Take a course. You don't need permission. You need momentum. Small steps lead to big change. Don't wait for 2026 to start something. When that year arrives, you'll wish you had started today. Let me tell you one thing. Between now and 2026, you will have a problem. You will feel tired. You will think of quitting. But remember, diamonds are made under pressure. If you want an easy life, do the hard things now. You don't need luck. You need clarity, courage, and consistency. Now go out there and make 2026. Thank you. Thank you. Learning something you're afraid of is one of the most powerful things you can do for your personal growth. And one of the greatest fears many people carry silently is the fear of being alone. Not just physically alone, but emotionally, mentally, without noise, without validation, without someone next to you telling you who you are. But what if I told you that learning to be alone without being lonely is not only possible, it's essential. Because the person who knows how to be alone is the person who can never be controlled. Too many people stay in the wrong relationships, wrong jobs, wrong environments, not because they like it, but because they fear the silence that comes after walking away. The silence of their own thoughts. The stillness of not having distractions. The emptiness of not having someone to lean on. And this fear of solitude becomes the cage that locks their potential. But what if we could turn that around? What if being alone wasn't a weakness, but a superpower? Being alone teaches you to hear your own voice. When you remove the noise of the world, the opinions, the pressure, the likes, the followers, you begin to hear what you really think, what you really want. In loneliness, people search for company, but in solitude, you search for truth. That is the difference, and that difference can transform your life. The reason people feel lonely when they are alone is because they haven't yet become friends with themselves. If you're not comfortable with who you are, then of course solitude will feel like punishment. But when you spend time alone and actually get to know yourself, you realize you are enough. You are interesting. You are capable. You are whole, not a half looking for another half. You become your own source of joy, creativity, and strength. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, being alone feels like withdrawal, like something is missing. But over time, it becomes peace. You begin to see things more clearly. You start creating instead of consuming. You go for walks without your phone. You sit in a cafe without needing to text someone. You journal. You reflect. You meditate. You find power in your presence. No filters, no performance, no audience, just you. And when you master this, when you can sit with yourself without needing to escape, everything changes. You stop chasing attention because you no longer need external validation. You stop fearing rejection because you know that losing someone else will never mean losing yourself. You stop tolerating nonsense because your peace has become more valuable than temporary company. This is the quiet confidence that builds empires, not always financial ones, but mental ones. Some people run from being alone by always being busy. Parts of people for constant movement. But busyness is not strength. It's often a mask. The real strength is in the person who can pause, sit in silence, and still feel complete. Because if you can thrive alone, then you are free. Freedom isn't just the ability to anywhere. It's the ability to be anywhere, or with no one, or with no one, and still feel fulfilled. And this level of inner freedom requires you to do what many people fear most. Face yourself. There will be uncomfortable moments. Maybe you'll realize you've been avoiding your own pain. Maybe you'll confront insecurities you've buried under entertainment and distraction. But this is where healing starts. When you no longer run from the discomfort of being alone, you begin to transform. You begin to accept your past, understand your patterns, and design your future with clarity, not desperation. And something beautiful happens when you learn to be alone without being lonely. You become more connected to others. Why? Because now you're not needy. You're not entering relationships to fill a hole. You're not afraid of being left because you've already learned how to stay. You show up to people as a whole person, not a puzzle with missing pieces. And this is what makes your presence magnetic. People are drawn to those who are content within themselves. Why? Because in a world full of noise, anxiety, and comparison, someone who is calm, self-aware, and peaceful stands out. You become the eye of the storm, not shaken, not searching, centered. When you know how to be alone, you can make decisions that are true to you. You don't take jobs just for approval. You don't compromise your values for company. You don't rush into things just to avoid silence. You move with intention because you are no longer afraid of being with the one person you'll never escape, yourself. So learning to be alone is not about isolation. It's about transformation. It's about meeting yourself, knowing yourself, loving yourself, so that no matter who comes and goes, you remain grounded. When you master this, loneliness no longer controls you. You may still feel lonely at times, that's human, but it won't define you. It won't break you. It won't make you settle. Learning to be alone without being lonely is one of the most valuable skills you can build before 2026. Because no matter how advanced technology becomes, no matter how connected the world gets, your greatest strength will always be your relationship with yourself. If you fear it, face it. If you avoid it, lean into it. And if you master it, nothing can stop you. In a world that's always online, surrounded by people, noise, and distractions, it might seem ironic that so many people feel more disconnected than ever. But there's a truth we rarely speak. Being constantly surrounded doesn't mean you're truly seen. And being always connected doesn't mean you're understood. That's why one of the most powerful lessons you can learn before 2026 is this: learn to be alone without being lonely. And the secret weapon in mastering this? Building your digital identity. Your digital identity is more than your profile photo or the number of followers you have. It's the story you tell the world when you're not in the room. It's the value you bring through your thoughts, your content, your work, your ideas. It's your presence in a world that's not visible. And when you build a digital identity that's real, intentional, and aligned with who you are, you'll find that solitude no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like freedom. When you are alone, you have time to reflect, not just on what you've done, but on who you are becoming. That quiet space gives you the chance to ask deeper questions. What do I want to create? What do I care about? What am I good at? And what do I want people to know me for? Your digital identity isn't built by accident. It's not created by endlessly scrolling through what others are doing. It's built by listening to yourself and having the courage to show up with what you find. People think being alone is boring. But in truth, being alone is one of the few chances you get to discover your authentic voice. And when you take that voice and put it out into the digital world, whether it's through writing, video, design, business, or teaching, you begin to build a brand that is uniquely yours. You'll start attracting opportunities, not because you chase them, but because your presence makes it clear what you stand for. Learning to be alone means you stop waiting for someone else to give you a platform. You create one. You start a blog. You post your ideas. You share your process. You don't wait until it's perfect, because you know growth happens in public. You stop being a silent observer of others and begin being an active builder of your own narrative. This is how you take control of your life in a noisy world. By showing up when no one tells you to, and by doing the work even when nobody's watching. When you build your digital identity from a place of solitude, something powerful happens. It becomes real. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about expressing something true. That truth builds trust. That trust builds connections. And those connections don't come from pretending to be someone you're not. They come from the confidence that comes with being fully yourself, even when you're alone. In solitude, you don't have to perform. You don't need to compete. You're not rushing to keep up with the pace of others. You are thinking, creating, refining. You are developing skills, exploring passions, testing ideas. And the beauty of the internet is that it gives you a blank canvas to put all of that into motion. You don't need permission. You don't need to be chosen. You need clarity, a little bit of courage, and the consistency to keep showing up. Being alone without being lonely also means you get to set your own values. In a world of trending topics and viral noise, this is rare. But when you are grounded in who you are and what you believe in, you stop bending for attention. You stop copying others because you've learned to respect your own originality. You know what you stand for, and that becomes the foundation of your digital identity. Whether 10 people see it or 10,000, it's real, and real will always outlast hype. Most people build their online identity based on what they think people want. But the truth is, the internet is already full of copies. What it's hungry for is clarity, sincerity, and people who are brave enough to be themselves. And to be yourself, you have to be comfortable in your own company. That's why learning to be alone is not just an emotional strength. It's a creative advantage. When you can sit with your thoughts, you become your own strategist, your own coach, your own creative director. This also gives you something even more valuable: independence. When you build your digital identity with intention, you create options, you build visibility, you open doors. People start to find you, not just because of what you sell, but because of who you are. That kind of power doesn't come from networking events or lucky breaks. It comes from doing the work quietly, persistently, consistently, especially when you're alone. And the best part is, your digital identity doesn't require you to be loud. It requires you to be honest. If you're thoughtful, then write. If you're visual, then design. If you love speaking, then create video. There is no one format. There is only one principle. Be clear, be valuable, be consistent how trust is built. That's how you attract people who resonate with your story, not just your product. When you embrace solitude, you realize something else. You're no longer dependent on external applause. You don't need likes to feel seen. You don't need comments to feel heard. Your self-worth isn't held hostage by engagement metrics. And ironically, that's what makes people gravitate towards you, because you show up with peace, not pressure. Your digital identity becomes an extension of your inner clarity, not your outer need. And in that process, you realize something deeper. Being alone never meant being disconnected. It meant being in alignment. And when you're in alignment with your values, your message and your creativity, your presence becomes powerful, even in silence. You are no longer lost in the crowd. You become someone others look to for clarity, inspiration, and depth. You become visible in a meaningful way, not because you chased it, but because you built it, one honest step at a time. Learning to be alone without being lonely is not just about emotional independence. It's about embracing the tools that can empower you during those quiet moments of solitude. One of the greatest tools available to you right now, one that's shaping the future at every level, is artificial intelligence. The mistake many people make is seeing AI as something cold, mechanical, and threatening. But when you understand it, when you learn how to work with it instead of fighting it, you begin to unlock a level of personal power, creativity, and clarity that amplifies your solitude instead of replacing it. When you're alone, the distractions are fewer and the noise of the world fades. This is when you have a chance to reflect, learn, build. But being alone doesn't mean you need to rely only on yourself. It means knowing how to use your time wisely. And that includes working with tools that can extend your mind, speed up your thinking, and elevate your capabilities. AI is one of those tools. It's like sitting with a quiet, tireless assistant who's always ready to brainstorm with you, write with you, code with you, design with you, plan with you. The power of solitude is multiplied when you realize you're not working alone. You're collaborating with intelligence. Too often, people resist what they don't understand. They fear AI will replace their job with the creativity they value. But the truth is, AI is not here to replace people. It's here to replace inefficiency, hesitation, and repetitive thinking. It's not here to make humans irrelevant. It's here to make them unstoppable. But that only happens when you stop fighting it and start learning how to speak its language. Being alone gives you that time, that space, that opportunity. In the quiet, you can explore AI without pressure. You can test, fail, learn, repeat, without judgment. That freedom is a gift, and the people who use it well will lead the next chapter of every industry. When you learn to be alone without being lonely, you're also learning to become self-sufficient. You stop needing constant validation or hand-holding. You realize that many of the questions you have, many of the challenges you face, can be explored through the lens of AI. Want to start a business, but don't know how? Use AI to build a plan. Want to write a book, but feel stuck? Let AI help you outline it. Want to learn a new skill? Use AI to guide your study. You become a builder, not just a dreamer. You become someone who acts, not someone who waits. And something interesting happens when you start creating with AI in solitude. You begin to discover your unique voice even more clearly. Because now, instead of spending hours stuck in overthinking or perfectionism, you move. You create momentum. AI doesn't replace your voice. It clears the fog around it. It helps you think faster, experiment more, and learn quicker. It doesn't give you all the answers, but it gives you a starting point. And when you're alone, that's all you need. Something to begin with, something to push you forward. The people who resist AI are often the ones still waiting for the world to slow down, but it won't. The speed of change is only increasing, and those who are willing to sit quietly, learn patiently, and adapt strategically are the ones who will thrive. Not because they're louder, richer, or luckier, but because they use their alone time not to scroll endlessly or escape reality, but to build capacity. They stopped fearing the tool and started mastering. When you master AI in solitude, you also take control of your future. You stop depending on others to explain, solve, or direct. You become your own strategist. You stop being overwhelmed by information and start organizing it. You stop drowning in options and start making decisions. AI becomes not a threat to your independence, but a catalyst for it. And the more you use it, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the more comfortable you are in your own company. This is how loneliness transforms into leadership. The most misunderstood thing about AI is that people think it's for tech experts or engineers. It's not. It's for anyone who's curious, who's willing to try. You don't need a degree in data science to use it. You need a question, a goal, and the will to learn. When you sit down to learn with your laptop and start asking the right prompts, you start discovering just how much you can do without waiting for permission. That's where empowerment lives. That's how solitude becomes strength. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you realize you can build something from scratch with just your ideas, your commitment, and the help of AI. You're no longer dependent on being part of a big team or having a lot of money. You don't need to be in a big city or have thousands of followers. You just need to be willing to use what you have. And when what you have includes AI, the excuses disappear. Because now, you can design a logo, write a business plan, edit a video, learn marketing, translate your thoughts, all without leaving your room. That's power. That's what Solitude used to lack. Not anymore. The truth is, learning to be alone in today's world isn't about isolation. It's about mastery. All types. Mastery of your mind, mastery of your time, and mastery of the tools that can help you turn ideas into action. AI is not just another tool. It's the tool. And the more you integrate it into your daily process, the more you realize how little you truly need from the outside world. Not because you reject people, but because you've built something unshakable within yourself. When you stop resisting AI, you stop resisting evolution. And when you embrace it with the focus and freedom that solitude provides, you accelerate, you move beyond survival, you step into innovation. You no longer feel behind because you've learned how to work ahead. You no longer fear being alone because you're never actually alone. You're surrounded by opportunity, supported by intelligence, and guided by intention. That is what it means to be ready for the future. That is how you transform solitude into power. Learning to be alone without being lonely teaches you how to be enough by yourself. But it also opens your eyes to the deeper layers of connection, not the kind that fills a silence, but the kind that expands your world. And one of the most powerful ways to deepen your understanding of the world and yourself is by making friends who don't look like you, not just in appearance, but in thought, background, culture, beliefs, and experience. Because when you become comfortable in your own presence, you stop needing sameness to feel safe. You start appreciating difference, not fearing it. Yeah, most people look for familiarity. They choose friends who confirm their ideas, who reflect their culture, who speak their slang, who vote the same way, eat the same food, follow the same trends. And while that kind of connection can feel easy, it doesn't challenge you to grow. It doesn't stretch your mind. It doesn't break the invisible walls that trap your perspective. But when you learn how to be alone, you stop clinging to comfort. You stop chasing people who mirror you. You begin looking for people who make you think, who make you see, who make you question. And that's where true growth begins. Being alone gives you time to reflect on who you are, but also on what you might be missing. It gives you space to ask yourself, have I built an echo chamber? Do I surround myself only with people who agree with me? Have I made the world smaller by filtering it through people who look and think like me? These aren't easy questions, but solitude gives you the courage to face them. And once you do, you'll realize that difference isn't dangerous. It's a doorway. When you become friends with someone who doesn't look like you, you step into another life. You learn what it's like to grow up in a different country, to be raised in another faith, to struggle with challenges you've never faced, to speak a language shaped by different roots. You begin to understand that your normal is not the only normal, that your truth is not the only truth. And that realization humbles you, it grounds you, it expands you. Solitude teaches you self-awareness. It teaches you how to listen to yourself, to your thoughts, to your patterns. But that same listening becomes even more powerful when you apply it to others. When you meet someone from another world, whether that's a different neighborhood or a different nation, you listen without judging. You don't try to correct them. You don't try to compare. You simply receive. You let their story affect yours, and slowly your assumptions begin to break. Your stereotypes begin to soften. Your definitions begin to widen. The most interesting people are not the ones who've seen the most places, but the ones who've understood the most people. And understanding only comes from proximity. It doesn't happen by reading headlines or reposting quotes. It happens by sitting at the table with someone you don't fully understand and choosing to stay, choosing to ask, to learn, to lean in. That kind of connection takes humility. You learn empathy not as a theory, but as a practice. You start seeing the world through multiple lenses, not just your own. And that kind of perspective is rare, it's valuable, it's transformative. Learning to be alone without being lonely gives you something rare in today's world. Space to think clearly, space to feel fully, space to begin without waiting for applause or permission. And in that space, the most powerful thing you can do is start something small today. Because the truth is, people wait too long. They wait for the right timing, the perfect plan, the external validation. But when you're comfortable in solitude, you stop waiting. You start creating. Not because you're ready in every way, but because the silence gives you permission to move without noise. When you're alone, it's easier to hear your own voice. You're not drowned out by everyone else's expectations, comparisons, or advice. In that clarity, ideas come. They might be rough. They might be quiet. They might feel foolish, but they are yours. And the longer you sit with them, the stronger they grow. The only mistake is thinking you need to do something massive, something impressive, something polished. You don't. You just need to start small now. Maybe it's a single post. Time. A sentence you've been thinking about for days. Product idea you've been scared to sketch. A name for a brand you've dreamed of building. A message to someone you admire. One video. One commitment. Starting small doesn't mean thinking small. It means being small. It means being smart. It means understanding that momentum doesn't come from dreaming. It comes from doing. Even if it's a whisper of effort, that whisper becomes a voice. That voice becomes a movement. But nothing moves until you do. Solitude gives you the advantage of focus. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not caught in the race to be seen. You're just with yourself. Yourself, fully. That's where the deepest decisions are made. Not in noise, but in stillness. You begin to realize what matters to you, not what others expect. And when you begin something from that place, it's rooted, it's honest. And honesty is magnetic. People can sense when something started from truth, not from pressure. Too many people waste their solitude by numbing it. They binge content. They scroll endlessly. They wait for someone to come along and give them a sense of direction. But you don't need someone to save you from silence. You need to step into it and ask, what can I build from here? Not everything has to be public. Not everything has to be perfect. Some of the most powerful things you will ever create begin in quiet rooms with no one watching, with no one clapping. No, and that's okay. Because the real reward isn't attention, it's progress. Starting small today because small is manageable. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't ask you to change your entire life in one leap. It just asks for a step. That step leads to another. Then slowly, you build something that reflects who you are, not who you're pretending to be. That kind of work lasts. That kind of work feels good even when no one sees it. It doesn't feed on validation. It grows on discipline. Being alone without being lonely means you've made peace with your own pace. You don't have to rush because you're not in competition. You're not reacting, you're responding. You're building something that matters to you. And the beautiful thing about starting small is that it removes your excuses. You don't need a team. You don't need an audience. You need an hour, a page, a decision. That's it. That's how every great thing began. People admire others who repeat that every big thing started small. Every brand began with a name. Every book began with a single sentence. Every business began with one customer. And every transformation began with one honest choice made in a quiet moment. You have that moment right now. What you do with it is up to you. The power of starting small is that you learn, you test, you adapt. You discover what works and what doesn't without the weight of massive consequence. You give yourself room to breathe, to grow. And you stop needing to pretend you have it all figured out. You don't. No one does. But those who build anyway, those who start small despite the uncertainty, become the ones others follow later. When you're alone, you realize the only opinion that really matters is your own. You're the one who has to live with the regret of not starting. You're the one who has to feel the cost of procrastination. And you're also the one who would feel the pride of starting, however small. Don't underestimate how powerful that can be. One small start can change your energy, your mindset, your future. It can spark something in you that you thought was gone. This isn't about hustle culture. It's about ownership. You don't need to burn yourself out to feel worthy. You just need to take responsibility for your time. When you're alone, that time is yours. No one is pulling you in 100 directions. That's a gift. Use it. Even if all you do today is write a list, sketch an idea, register a domain, send a message, you've planted a seed. That seed doesn't look like much, but in time, it becomes something real, something living, something that feeds you in ways scrolling never will. Starting small teaches you to respect the process. It reminds you that your pace is enough, that your presence matters, that your silence is not wasted when it's filled with intention. When you use solitude to begin, you learn how strong you are without the spotlight. And that kind of strength builds character. It builds consistency. It builds results. You don't need to change the world today. You just need to change your posture from waiting to acting, from doubting to trying, from thinking to doing. That shift doesn't require a revolution. It requires one small, honest action. And the best time to take it is not tomorrow, not next year, not when you're ready. It's today. Because nothing changes until you begin. And once you begin, everything changes.